get me a rubber, and you go, oh, because you knew what was going to happen. She'd rub half
just
of it
go and
out,
correct
redo it, and then she'd mark it. She wouldn't put it on the paper. She'd mark it in her book and not tell you what you got.
Oh.
So you had no idea how you were progressing in art.
Oh, that's no good. No.
Other than the fact you were rubbish.
No.
Well, you couldn't tell how rubbish you were.
No.
You didn't know whether it was a 3 or a 4.
Well, I have to say, I mean, art's such a subjective thing anyway, and I did art to O level, and I had Mr. Turner at the end, and because he was very much into abstract art and things like that, and I didn't really understand it because my dad painted very figuratively, and that's what I was used to, a very old-fashioned way of painting, really, according to Mr. Turner. But the penny finally dropped that the only way to get good marks with Mr. Turner was to paint what he wanted. So I suddenly became a bit of an abstract artist. And I didn't like the stuff I was doing, but I was getting good marks for it, so that's what I did.
Do you remember the sort of games you played at school? Playground games?
Yeah.
Rather than sporty stuff?
When I was at Lordsgate, we used to do the old, what was it about? You put your hand on, you'd have a long line, usually girls, and one would put their hand on the wall, and you'd do the big ship sail through the alley-alley-o, and they'd all go through. That was one. Sort of skipping games and clapping games where you...
Do you remember any rhymes you used to sing or in skipping?
Well, the one, only because, I think I remember it because it was a record that my mother told her, "You kissed a soldier."
Yeah.
But I think I remember that because it was a record, not necessarily because we did it.
Right.
2-ball we used to play up against the wall. But no, I can't remember the rhymes. Or if I can, I think I can remember them, but they're coming from a different source, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But the big ship sailed through the alley-alley-o, that's the one I remember definitely doing.
Hopscotch, did you do that?
Yeah.
How did you play hopscotch?
Well, mostly that was done at home, not at school,
Right.
because there were paving stones. So we used to just draw on the paving stones the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you'd throw a stone, and wherever it landed, you sort of hopped up to it, I think, and then picked up your stone and went again. But that was a home game, not a playground game.
Were you in any youth organisations when you were?
Yeah, I was in the Brownies, which I never really understood what that was all about. We used to go, and we'd put our uniform on, and we'd do things in our sixes, and then we'd go home again. Never really seemed to achieve very much, but we used to go every week and sing, and then I went to Sunday school, of course, and I sang in the choir at the Catholic church. That was most. I never went to the youth club. There was a youth club, but I didn't go to it.
You didn't go up to guides or anything like that?
I didn't, no. I'd sort of lost patience with Brownies, really, and because you hear about, Brownie packs doing like going on holiday, going on camp, and we never did anything like that. I think the most exciting thing we ever did was made sweets once.
I was in the Cubs. I never went up to Scouts, but
No.
Again, it was like we just went on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Maybe had a bit of a game in the hut, and that was it. The only time we went anywhere, I remember going anywhere, was Gilwell Park, which was a sort of big meeting place for, the Baden-Powell lot. We went to London for a weekend, and that was all I remember. The only other thing I remember is losing my hat.
No, we never went anywhere. We did walk in the procession, on church parade days.
Right. Was that walking day or?
They just used to call it church parade. There probably was a walking day, but I think we did it more than once a year, so there probably was a specific walking day. But I can't remember. It seemed to come around fairly frequently. It might have even been once a month.
Yeah.
And you'd because there'd be the Scouts and the Guides and also and the British Legion, I think, and obviously the church people, and we'd walk from the cenotaph up to the church. But it was definitely more than once a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So we're back at school and we're working up to O levels.
Right.
Well, I presume you did O levels.
I did,
at
yeah.
the time they were GCSEs.
Yes, that's right.
what sort of advice did you have on what to take?
Well, look, you took your options in the third year, and I can remember my mum, because your parents went to Parents' Day, and then the teachers said, you know, she's good at this or she's not good at that. She was advised that I ought to keep on with Latin because I was doing languages, but there was some problem because I wanted to do music, and you couldn't always do all the subjects that matched, so I ended up dropping Latin in order to do music, and being told that, because of that I would never be able to do Spanish properly. I'd never be any good at it, and I got an A at O level, and then I went on and did A level at it, so yaboo sucks to them. But it was mostly about the language side. Maths, obviously, I was always pretty poor at. I had Mrs. Cook, who was marvellous, and she actually got my maths up, because you had to do maths for O level. That wasn't a choice. You had to do English and you had to do maths. Oh, you couldn't do CSE in our school, could you? No, the St Bede's, where my friend Anne went, they could do CSE, but we weren't allowed to. So you had to do O level.
That was a certificate of secondary education, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I think the grammar schools sort of looked down their noses at it, that it wasn't a proper qualification. No. So, but you know, the fact that I might have been able to get a grade 1 at CSE or fail O level didn't seem to compute. You know, because grade 1 CSE did actually count for something. They not as much as an O level, but it was better than a non-O level. But Mrs. Cook was very good, and she'd infinite patience, and she would, if you didn't get it one way, she'd explain it another way. Of course, the result of that was, come the fourth year, I was better at it. So they moved me up to the next set, which was Mr. Robertson, which was a disaster.
Smoky Joe.
Oh, God. Oh, he was... And, yeah, and he reeked of this awful aftershave. Well, it was a mixture of cigarette smoke and aftershave, and he was a horrible weaselly little man, and he was one of those teachers that obviously knew his subject very well but wasn't very good at communicating it. And even Kim was in my class then. Kim was very good at maths, and even she fell behind with him because he'd be writing stuff on the board, and if you couldn't keep up, you know, and he used to come over to me and he'd lean on the desk and put his hands on, and he'd watch me. So, of course, you're like, going even more wrong. And then he'd get my book and he'd go, "Ha! See what Brain of Britain's done now." And he'd read out what I'd done, to the great amusement of the class. End of the fourth year, exams right down again. So I got called into, who was head of maths then? Mr... he was a nice man. Forgotten his name. I want to say Mr. Turner, but it wasn't.
No, Mr. Can't think now.
No, I can't. Well, you know who I mean anyway. And he said to me, "Why didn't you say you were having difficulties?" And I don't know what I said to him, but in subsequent years I thought, well, probably because I was 14 and you just didn't, did you? So then I got Mrs. Cook again, which was marvellous, and she got me back up again, and I just about scraped through.
Worthington, was it?
Mr.
Worthington.
Yes, that was him. But thanks to Mrs. Cook, I just about scraped through. But if I'd stayed with Mr. Robertson, I'd have had no chance at all.
Well, I mean, we had him, and he always found he'd give you something to do, and then 2 minutes later he's doing it on the board. You know, he's working it out for you on the board, so you didn't actually have time to work anything out yourself.
No. I hadn't a hope. Absolutely hopeless. I was good at English, I was good at languages, I was good at music, and I was good at art. Sciences, I was hopeless at chemistry. Pretty hopeless at physics. Anything with numbers in it, you see. Although music, as Denise has pointed out to me, is a mathematical process. So why I was able to do that and not the other things, and I suppose I didn't see it as maths.
It's more abstract, isn't it?
To me it was sound, and it was natural. When I did, because I did A level music, and we had to do harmony, which was very, very you can write music and you can write harmony. You can do it instinctively, but the way you do it to pass an exam is mathematically, and I did find that hard.
Yeah.
And the only way I could do it was by what I thought it would sound like, and I was often told off because it wasn't correct. It might sound all right, but it wasn't correct. And we used to have arguments because Paul McArdle was in our A-level group, and he used to have these real arguments with Mr. Gelder about, Paul McCartney didn't do it that way, and he did all right.
Talking about music, I remember one Friday night, I walked into the Dickinson Arms at Wrightington at Dangerous Corner, and there was this young girl at the front in the folk club singing her head off, and I looked at her and I thought, I know you. And you probably looked at me and you thought, I know you. We had never met really up to that point, had we?
Well, we hadn't been formally introduced.
Not properly. I mean, I don't know whether you knew who I was or not.
Oh no, I did. Yeah.
How did you get into the folk music?
We were on holiday with we had a caravan, and we always used to go away in the caravan. And we'd been down round Devon, and on the way back we stopped at a place called Highworth in Wiltshire. Well, actually we stopped at a place called South Marston, but we were driving through the village of Highworth looking for something to do, and it was halfway through the second week of the holiday, and we were all getting a bit fed up of each other, and just really looking for something to do so that we could just sit and not argue. And my dad saw this sign outside the White Horse pub, and it said folk on Wednesdays. And he'd heard a jug band once, so he thought he knew what folk music was, and he liked the jug band, so that's what we'll go and we'll do that. And so we pulled up outside, and two young men came out of the pub and more or less dragged us out of the car. It was the first week in August, so everybody was at Sidmouth, and there was like half a dozen of them sitting in the club that night thinking nobody's going to come. And when they saw three warm bodies pull up outside, right, we'll have them. And we met there Betty Tremblin and her husband Bert, and Nick, who was one of the two young men, who was her son, and his friend Malcolm. And they became such good friends. And sadly, Bet died a few years ago, but my life changed that night. We went in and they were so friendly. They just made us feel so welcome. And that was the Wednesday. And they said, you must come to Bampton with us on Friday. So they took us over to Bampton, and we had such a fantastic time. My dad was never a real big keen fan of folk music, but he did like going there with them because they were really good fun nights. And then of course we came home and Dad was talking to blokes at work at Eric Benrose and chatting about the holiday, and said, oh yeah, we've been to these folk clubs and they were great, and of course we don't have anything like that round here. And Mick Rimmer, who worked with him, and Roger Downing said, yes, I think you'll find we do. And Mick said, well, come round to ours on Sunday and we'll go to the Bothy after. So we went to the Bothy, and then, we just went. I went to everything, and my poor old dad was dragooned into taking us because he was the only one that drove. But we went to Cayley's, went to folk clubs. I joined the Argameals clog team and just thought it was great.
So where did you get your songs from?
Well, the first night when we were in the club at Highworth, I'd got a guitar which we'd bought on holiday, and I'd been sort of learning a few chords and things, and we'd got it in the boot, and they were going around the room singing like they do, and they said, oh, do any of you sing? My mum and dad said, oh, well, Linda does, she's got a guitar, so, oh, go and get it. So I was sort of sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do. So I said, well, all right, I don't know any folk songs. I'll just sing a song that I know, Scarborough Fair. And they all went, that is a folk song. Oh, right, okay. So then I just used to try and sort of, I think I can remember going to Debenhams and buying a 5p piece tape to learn stuff off it. And then I joined the FDSS, and I used to sort of get things from the library at Cecil Sharp House. It was just getting them from wherever you could, and learning them by listening to other people singing as well.
So I'm just trying to think what you were singing. It was probably a music hall song.
Might have
I
been.
know you did The Boy I Love Is Up in the Gallery.
Yeah, still do. The
Yeah.
material's never changed.
Well, I'm the same. I'm still doing the same things I did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But I mean, after that Friday, I came back into school on the Monday, came up to you and I said, I didn't know you did that. And you said, I didn't know you did.
No. And then we never spoke of it again.
We didn't. No,
Not at school, anyway.
Just kept it a secret.
Yes.
My first night actually was that night before at the Queen's Head, because Paul McArdle and his brother Ian had opened there.
Oh.
And I was doing stuff at school anyway, doing the PTA evenings.
Right.
With David and Ruth Parkinson and Sandra Spencer. I don't know whether she's related to all the Spencers we know. But,
she's a different brand.
Different?
Yeah.
Lane,
that's right. Yeah. They might be related at some point in history, but she's related to a girl I knew here in Croston.
Right.
But there were another lot of Spencers.
So we were doing that at school, and then Paul said, "Oh, we're opening our club tomorrow night. Do you want to come?" Oh, go on then. I'll come. And it went on from there. Never looked back, as they say.
No. He was very talented, Paul. I think he ended up working in the music industry in sound or something like that. I think so. And I remember that was what he wanted to do, a course for sound engineering or something like that, and they were having a problem because to get the A levels he needed wasn't fitting in with the school timetable, and his mother had to fight tooth and nail to get him to do what he needed to get into his course. But yeah, I always thought he was ever so good looking as well.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
Not your time. Didn't he end up marrying Belinda Bishop?
Yes. Still are.
Oh.
Yeah. As I spoke to Ian not so long ago, asked him how he was. So
Yes.
doing all right.
Yes. Is he still living on a narrowboat? Or?
Ian?
Yeah.
No, he's in Cottage Lane somewhere in Ormskirk.
Oh, that's where his mother lived.
Yeah, they're both dead now, his mum and dad.
Oh, right. Peggy, his mother was called.
But I think Ian inherited some money or a house or something like that.
Probably the house they had there, yeah. Oh, good.
A house down there.
I went out with him briefly.
Who, Ian?
Yeah.
No.
I know.
Oh,
we won't go there.
Dwell on those things. Did you get any careers advice at school or not?
No. Oh, the only thing I got was, because again, the school was very geared towards academia. And in the sixth form, I decided I don't know if you remember, there was what they called the careers room, which was just a square room with Dexian racking round it and a load of tidy boxes with prospectuses in them. And me and Kim used to go and sit in there and look through all these prospectuses. And I can remember looking at them and thinking, well, I don't even know what this is. I remember looking at one for linguistics and thinking, I thought I might like that, but I didn't know what it was. And there wasn't really anybody to ask. And then in the end, I decided, no, I was going to go to the Technical College at Southport and do secretarial studies. This news reached the ears of Miss Pimblett, who was the deputy head, who had me in her office so quick on the dodgy chair that used to be there that you had to balance on the front of because you couldn't sit on it properly.
Somewhere I never went.
She was girls, for girls, yeah. Well, she had this sort of easy, sort of fireside chair with arms, but if you sat back in it properly, the seat had gone, so you'd end up sort of very undignified with your arms and legs flailing, so you had to just sort of perch on the front of it. And she sort of sat me down and really wanted to know why I wanted not to go to university and why I wanted to do this secretarial course, which clearly wasn't going to suit the school. And I told her, explained my reasons, and she said, well, still, she said, you've got your singing. You could be the next Nana Muscuri. And I think she just sort of consoled herself with the fact that, well, she's wasting her time doing secretarial studies, but she can sing, so she's probably going to be all right.
So what did you do after you left school?
I did the course. I did bilingual secretarial course. And then I worked for a shipping company in Liverpool. Then I went and worked at Wigan Council. I did a few jobs there. I started off in the typing pool. Then I went into, I was like office manager for the YTS scheme, and then I was a typing pool supervisor in the chief executive department. And then I moved to Chorley, and I was a YTS supervisor there. But then when I went to work for the NHS after that as an office sort of admin assistant, that's when I got interested in graphic design, and I was fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time, and I was allowed to sort of help out with the graphic design. And then they sent me on a couple of courses, and then they sponsored me to do HNC, and then I did my degree. So that was just lucky, really. It was there was no plan to it. It just happened.
And so you now work for yourself?
I do, yes, yeah, because I was finally made redundant from the NHS after 19 years. Right. And at that time I was 48. And the honest truth is I was too terrified to look for another job. I just didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, I know what I do, and I've got the equipment. So I was lucky that because they'd just cut the graphic design function, I just used the contacts I had and sort of rang them all up and said, well, if you need anything doing, I'm here. And so for the last 2.5 years, I've been, not just the NHS, I've had other clients as well, but mostly the people I used to work with, really.
Yeah.
So, yes.
What do you remember of the place you lived? Shops. What did you remember? Which shops did you used to go to?
Yeah. Because when I was very little, of course, we didn't have a fridge, so my mum had to go down to the village most days for bits and pieces. I remember Seddon's was on the corner. That was like a general store. There was Eric Moss's was the electrical shop. That was.
So where were you living at the time?
Gower Gardens by Bursker Junction. So it was about a mile walk to the village.
And when we say Bursker Village, do you mean the Bursker towards Ormskirk, or if you go down on Bursker Bridge?
I know, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we call Bursker Village is actually the town.
Yeah.
But what they call Bursker Town is where the post office is, and there's nothing else there. And I don't know why
it's... Is that up Square Lane?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and they call that Bursker Town.
Right.
I don't know why, and I've been reading a book and it's not thrown any light on it. Well, because Bursker Village, as we know it, is as a town, and that's where all the shops were. There was Walton's was the Aladdin's Cave for kids, because it was a double fronted shop. Well, it was two shops really, I suppose, made into one. And as you went in, the first bit was a sweet shop and magazines, and it always felt like really closed in. There was so much stuff in there, so that you went in those sweets there, that was great. But then if you turned to the right and went through, that's where all the toys were, and there were like pocket money toys on an island in the middle, but then the prizes, the things that you'd really want, were around the walls. And all my good toys always came from Walton's.
Yeah.
I had a Tiny Tears doll that I really wanted, and my mum said no, we couldn't just have one because it was too expensive. So I had a piggy bank, and I used to save up pennies, old pennies, until I had enough, and I used to count them out every week. And then when I'd got enough pennies, we went down to Walton's and I got this Tiny Tears doll, and I've still got it upstairs. That's how important it was, because I'd had to save up for it.
Yeah, it's funny how there are things that we do save up for when we're little, be it cars or model cars or whatever.
Yeah.
What other shops were there then around? If you went to do your grocery shopping?
Yeah. Well, as I say, there was the Seddon's on the corner, and then there was the chemist, and the post office, and there was a couple of banks where the Royal Bank of Scotland is now. That used to be Williams and Glynn's, I think. And then Ramage's, which was always there, my favourite shop in the entire world. You can get anything at Ramage's, and you can get one of them as well. And I remember them having wood delivered down the hatch, and it always smelt nice of fresh wood, and then Walton's was next to that. Further down there was, now this might be later on, I might be getting mixed up in time, but there was Endora's, which sold fancy goods, and Andrea, that was definitely later on, but they were two shops linked. At the very far end, I've missed a few out because I can't remember them, but the very far end, just before you went down to the station, was where it's now a carpet shop. That used to be, I think that was Webster's, and they sold furniture, because we got our basket chairs from there. I remember that. That was. Then on the other side, there was the Midland Bank, which is now a charity shop for the hospice. There was Hankins Butchers. Mr. Hankin was a real traditional butcher, a big man, and a bit frightening when you were a kid. But I think, you know, and I remember the women queuing up and all talking to him. Always sawdust on the floor. There were two butchers. Hankins was one. I've forgotten the other one. My mum always went to Hankins. On the other end, there was a newsagent's shop, and I've forgotten the name of that. But then, when I was, well, after I'd started school, a Tesco's opened, and that, my mum thought that was fantastic, because up till then, all the shops were, you know, you went in and you waited your turn and then they served you. But in Tesco's, you got a basket and you went round and got your own stuff, and that was fantastic. And she used to go, it's funny how, you know, you don't think at the time, it was a bit daft. She'd go down in the day, do the shopping, and then at night my dad and mum and I would go down in the car and we'd pick it up. And you think, why didn't they just do it all in one go? Why did she walk all the way down there? But because they were used to doing that, the women were used to going down to the shops. But, you know, because I think before then, I think Seddon's used to deliver. There was a little van, but you probably had to pay for that. But at Tesco, she could go and in our car and pick it up. Yeah.
I'm going to pause there because I need to change. Tell me about the clog shop.
Right. Well, it was really, I mean, we knew it as a shoe shop because my mum used to get my shoes there. But it was on the bridge over the canal. It was sort of part of that building that's now forms part of the wharf. And it was a shoe shop and shoe repairers, but he made clogs as well.